shotgun in all of Arkansas is right behind me. Oh, that's an old one. That's an old one. I got a... What was that? I have been telling this, and I first started telling it because it amused the heck out of me. And I just kept telling it because I think folks that like it almost as well as I do. So the very first people to come to this area, right around in here, that we lovingly call home, was the French. Now the French explorers and trappers got here early on, and the first thing they saw was a bunch of Indians. And so the French said to the Indians, the French equivalent of, "Hi, how y'all doing?" And the Indians said the Indian equivalent of, "Oh, I guess we're all right." And the French said, "Y'all live around here anywhere?" And the Indians said, "No, we don't live here. We just come in here to hunt and to cut down wood to make bows out of, you know, bows and arrows out of." And the French said, "Hey, that's a good-looking bow. Let me see that." So he looked at the bow and said, "Man, that's good-looking wood. Now, what tree do y'all get this off of?" Because over in Europe, what they get bow wood off of is called a yew tree. That was what everybody made bows and arrows over on. Yeah, well, we ain't got no yew around here. And the Indians pointed and they said, "Off that tree over yonder." And the French looked at it. Oh, it was not a pretty tree. It was really scruffy looking, and it was kind of wider than it was tall, and it had these big green lumpy things hanging off of it. I said, "That's what you get them bows off of?" And the Indians said, "Uh-huh." So the French named that tree bow wood, which in French is bois. That's the word for wood. De, which means of the, and arc, A-R-C, which is the name for a bow. Wadark. Of course, the closest the hillbillies could get to it was Bodark. Of course, nowadays, they've been around for so long, everybody's got a name. There's about 15 names for that particular tree. Horseapple, hedge, Bodark, Osage orange, it's all the same tree. So when them French got started making up a chart as to where they'd been, they said, "Now right in here was where we saw all them bowwood trees." Okay, so they wrote on that map where the bows come from. In French is Oz, A-U-X, Arc, A-R-C-S, that's the plural form, Ozarks. That's where we got our name. All we had to do was respell it. Keep the hillbillies from calling it Oxarks. But that's how you pronounce it. Oh, there's tons of things around here that the French named that the hillbillies couldn't get anywhere close to pronouncing. Down in Arkansas, there was a place, and the French built a bridge across the river. And they said, and in order that the bridge last a long time, they put a top over it. It was a covered bridge, which in French is chemin couvert. Chemin couvert. Chemin couvert. Close as the hillbillies could get was smack over. That's where it got its name. Now there's another place down in Arkansas, and I sure do wish I could tell you what the French words was that started it. My husband heard them when he was in college and promptly forgot them, which is surprising because he is a language whiz. But there's a place down there that there's a ferry boat that goes across the White River, and them folks gave it a name, and the closest the hillbillies could get was Toadsuck. I've heard all sorts of stupid stories about how that thing got its name, and they're all a crock. It's two French words everybody has forgotten, and I don't know no more, and my husband heard it and forgot. But that, oh, there's all kinds of places about where the French name stuff and nobody can pronounce it. And then there's French names that get mispronounced all the time, like Longueuil, that's down in Arkansas. Who knows? But well, anyway, now you know. Okay, quick, the kid's bored. Tell a story she'll like. Once upon a time, there was a house made out of hemp stalks. In it lived an old man, an old woman, and a little girl. And outside their doghouse lived little dog Turpie. Now, it was Turpie's job every single night while everybody was in the house sleeping. She'd stay in her doghouse and she'd keep a watch. One night she was doing her job, they were sleeping, she was watching, and the hop-yahs came from the mountain. They were going hop-yah, 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 tear down the hemp stalks, eat the old man and woman, carry off the little girl. Turpie rushed out of her doghouse and Turpie said, "Bah!" And the hop-yahs, they ran away. And the old man turned in his bed. He said, "Little dog Turpie barks so I can either sleep or slumber if I live till tomorrow. I'm going to cut off her tail." Next morning he did. And the hop-yahs came again. Hop-yah, 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 tear down the hemp stalks, eat the old man and woman, carry off the little girl. Well, Turpie, she said, "Bow, wow, wow," and the hop-yahs, they ran away because they knew somebody was watching. And the old man turned in his bed. He said, "Little dog Turpie barks so I can either sleep or slumber if I live until tomorrow. I'm going to cut off her ears." Next morning he did. That night the hop-yahs came again. Hop-yah, 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 tear down the hemp stalks, eat the old man and woman, carry off the little girl. Well, Turpie, she said, "Bow!" And the hop-yahs, they ran away. And the old man turned in his bed and said, "Little dog Turpie barks so I can either sleep or slumber if I live until tomorrow. I'm going to cut off one of her legs." Next morning he did. And the hop-yahs came again. Hop-yah, 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 tear down the hemp stalks, eat the old man and woman, carry off the little girl. Well, Turpie said one great big ruff, but it was enough. The hop-yahs, they ran away. And the old man turned in his bed and said, "Little dog Turpie barks so I can either sleep or slumber if I live till tomorrow. I'm going to cut off her head." Next morning he did. That night the hop-yahs came again. Hop-yah, 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 tear down the hemp stalks, eat the old man and woman, carry off the little girl. Turpie didn't say anything. So the hop-yahs, they tore down the hemp stalk house and they ate that old man. They ate the old woman. They put the little girl in a sack and they tied it shut. And a bunch of them picked her up and carried her off up to the mountains. All night long they danced around the sack going hop-yah, hop-yah, hop-yah. And they'd run over, untie the sack, they'd say, "Look at me," and the little girl would scream. And they'd come back, untie the sack, and say, "Look at me," and the little girl would cry. Come the dawn, all the hop-yahs went back under the mountain because they only come out in the dark. They left the little girl sitting tied in the sack. Well, that morning a hunter came by with a gun and a big black dog. He said, "I believe that sack up there is crying," because the little girl was. Oh, but the dog's way ahead of him. The dog's running up the hill, started snurfling around that sack, wagging his big fluffy black tail, and the hunter said, "I'm going to go up there and look in that sack." So he walked up the hill, he untied the sack, he looked in, and the little girl screamed, and he said, "Why are you screaming at me?" She said, "Oh, I thought you was the hop-yahs that ate the old man and ate the old woman and to come back to eat me up." And the hunter said, "Nah." And he took the little girl out of the sack, took her home to be his little girl. But before he left, he put the big black dog in the sack, tied it shut just like it'd been that night. All the hop-yahs came going, hop-yah, hop-yah, hop-yah. And they ran over, untied the sack. He said, "Look at me." And the big black dog said, and then he ate all those hop-yahs down to their last toenail, which is the reason there ain't no more hop-yahs today.